Alright, we're good to go. I just had to tidy up a few things, realised my spreadsheet wasn't actually what I wanted it to be. So I just updated that. The first thing really is that this thing is not easy to drive, and that driving, I think if we just take a look at the baseline set, the the things you can change is not really that much. It's kind of the usual stuff with regards to camber, caster, tow on this car. You can do some air pressure stuff as well. And a little bit on ride heights. You do have a couple of anti-roll bar settings and things, but realistically, it's difficult to drive, and you with how the baseline is in terms of it doesn't like just looking at it, it doesn't look like it's gonna be like a million miles away from what would be good, and by that I mean it has kind of reasonable air pressures in it. I mean, you can go lower on air. You can go down to 16s. So I feel like if there's any time to be gained, really, it's going to mostly be in that. There's not really a huge amount of scope you can do for camber. You can get a little bit more compared with the base. The caster's already maxed out, so there's probably nothing to be had there. There's a couple of shock settings and a couple of bar settings and things. But really, there's not a huge amount you can do on this. It's kind of similar to the MX-5, and on the MX-5, basically most of the gains came from really most of the gains came from a combination of stiff bar settings and camber really, and this base has already kind of got it in them. But we'll still mess with it and that. But really, it's really hard to drive. It genuinely is, and a lot of the speed that you're gonna find in this thing is basically gonna come from just practice. It's got a really weird kind of behavior, especially on corner entry, and it's almost made worse by the fact that it's a proper H pattern car, so you kind of have to be on the pedal. Like if you're gonna do it with the H pattern and clutch and everything, it's really quite challenging. But it's interesting. It's an interesting car to drive. There's no fuel option, which I kind of found a bit confusing. I feel like this car in the past had a fuel option, but I guess it doesn't. So that's kind of weird. But we'll just go with it. We'll try put probably 5 laps on it. I think the lap times are roughly like 1:38. So probably looking at about 4 time laps again on that. The race itself, I think, is supposed to be 15 laps long. So that'll kind of be an interesting one. If you got any questions or anything, just let me know in chat. I can read them, especially down the straights, so I can kind of give you answers while I'm driving, so you don't end up with a lot of dead time in the stream and that kind of thing. Hey man, yeah, I've driven this car in the past, and it's always been difficult. I kind of did a maybe like 6 to 8 laps before I started, just so I could get an idea of whether or not it was. Actually, let me just check something. I feel like I didn't unmute my sound. Okay, yeah, I did. We're good. And it's always difficult basically on corner entry because it'll always want to spin out. I actually kind of feel like it might be slightly easier than it used to be. One thing I've noticed with this car is that it really likes you to kind of always be on throttle with it. Which can be really weird, because what I've found is it means that I end up braking actually earlier than I would normally want to, then changing down to the gear that I want for the corner, and then kind of shifting my feet across so that I got my left foot on the brake, and then I always have like a little bit of throttle on. The handy thing though is that if you're actually going to go off with it, because you're going to understeer off, you can just get completely off the gas and you'll get a bucket load more rotation. But yeah, really not easy to drive. At least I don't think so, anyway. It's fun though, if you can kind of get like at least halfway decent with it, it's a fun car. I'll probably try and put down 4 timed laps with this, and then we can kind of go from there. Although that's actually something I noticed just before I started the stream, is that you can actually get away without pressing the clutch on the downshifts, which can make your life quite a bit easier. It's only upshifts that seem to require the clutch.
Minute 38.12.
Something I've noticed with it as well is that it's very, very harsh over curbs. Okay, so the non-clutched shifts aren't perfect on the downshifts. Like, it can be done, but I guess you have to be really precise with them. The other thing I found with this car is that it's always better to kind of underdo the braking zones than barrel into them and overdo them. Because at least if you undercook them, you can actually get back on the gas to stop the thing spinning out. Whereas if you go in too hot, you're basically screwed. Kinda like that.
1 minute 38.27.
See, that yellow curb I would use a lot with other cars, but with this one it really seems to unsettle it. Like right there, like I could tell that I kind of got in too deep, but I had just enough where you could just get like back on the gas and stop it spinning out. It's weird, this car's like almost opposite to a lot of stuff, and I kind of feel like the driving style's sort of similar to 911, except for the kind of the reversal of being on the brake and throttle. And kind of what I mean is that you can It's about sort of driving the car through the corner
38.08.
rather than hustling it around it. But the exception is that you have to kind of always kind of balance the throttle to stop it spinning out. Whereas you can't do that with a 911. You'll just spin. It does feel a little bit lazy in like high speed corners. Like if there's any time to be gained, I feel like it's there. Where on throttle, it's not really got the rotation it needs. Like through there, I'd like more turn. And same here. The other thing with it being a low power car is I kind of want to run as little tow as I can get away with it, just so that I don't waste what power I've got in terms of dragging the wheels against each other. That's a really bad last corner.
1 minute 38.01.
But we'll do 4 time laps and then kind of go from there. Also, in terms of the spreadsheet, thanks Windows. There is a link to the spreadsheet on the forum, but I'll also put it on screen after each time. That is not what I wanted. There we go. So again, I kind of just omit the minute at the beginning. Hide the last row there. I'll leave a space to kind of break up the sheet a bit. I added a couple of things. I also added a fastest lap, a slowest lap, and a variance thing. The reason I added the variance sort of addition was really to sort of get an idea about long run pace and kind of consistency in sort of how the car handled. Now, it doesn't really do either like independently, but it does give you an idea. I found it really useful for cup stuff. Like the more laps you have per run, the better it works. And really, it's just I found it gave me an idea in terms of how difficult basically the car was to drive, and also a little bit in terms of how much drop off there was in the tire. I mean, you can see it anyway just by looking at like the start and last laps, but I found it helpful, so I just added it. If you want to copy it and put it in your own spreadsheet, that's cool. I'm all for that kind of thing. Also, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Now, getting back to the car. In terms of what we can do, like I was saying, we don't really have a lot of options other than the usual kind of tow, camber, that kind of thing. Now, I want to try it with as little tow as I can run, just to try and reduce some of the drag on the straights. So we'll try that first. I'm also tempted to change the bar settings, but I feel like we'll do that for another run, just because there's so little we can change anyway. One interesting thing is that JRT doesn't seem to have any interest in taking any fuel info from this car, and I really don't know why. And also next week there will be a vote for cars again. Just this week I was really kind of tight for time. And I didn't want to put a vote up that was basically only going to be there for like a day. The other thing with the tow is it should kind of make the rear a bit more lively in these slow speed corners, like right on turn-in. So it might actually help with what I was saying with regards to like the laziness and the S's back there. But we'll see. The main reason I was doing it was because it just scrubs speed. Which is not really a problem in a high power car, but in something like this where there's like none. Also, something to note about the Spec Racer is that while it looks like it's a car that should be very lightweight, it's actually not. I feel like it's a lot heavier than you would expect just looking at it. So you have to kind of keep that in mind a bit when you're driving it, that it's not as responsive as you might expect. At face value, just looking at this car, I'm kind of thinking that where I'm probably going to end up is that I'm going to end up with things like the camber maxed, the toes as close to zero as I can get, and then maybe a couple of changes to anti-roll bars and pressures and things. I feel like I'll probably end up lower on pressures than we currently are. And then basically just use ride heights to kind of get the handling that I want from there. But we'll see. As I was talking to somebody before I started this, that sometimes it's best to kind of throw the preconceived ideas away and just work through everything and get to the answer that way.
Minute 37.65.
Oh, and I wonder if I can do anything with the shocks for those curbs. I've only got rebound adjustments, so I feel like I probably won't be able to, but we'll see. This is a fun car, though. Like, it seems to have a really sort of like specialized following for it just because of how it drives, but it is fun if you can figure out how to drive it.
Minute 37.55.
And I mean, it's free, so at least I'm pretty sure it's free. So there's no harm in checking it out. If you don't like it, you don't like it, you know? It didn't cost anything.
1 minute 37.8.
I feel like it's the third lap. I don't know whether it's just like the slow speeds in this car, but the tire feels like it's basically just a solid brick. Like it feels like it's just never gonna die. That was not what I wanted.
One minute 37.9.
Yeah, we'll take it anyway. And also, I'm going to reset JRT because I feel like it's died. Alright, so I will add up those. And I know it's going to be faster, but I do feel like it's a bit of a combined gain in terms of just like the toe did help because it kind of got it rotating more in like the switchbacks. But I also feel like I perhaps drove it a little better as well. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. Yeah, it's a little faster. But actually this is interesting because it shows like variance thing actually kind of works a bit. But it's mainly because I started off on a 1, a 2, a 0, and a 0 with the base. Whereas on this I went a 6-5. Basically it just gives you an idea of the spread of lap times. With the kind of theory being that the more spread there is, the harder the thing is to drive and so on. But it doesn't work so great over like a 4-lap run. And yeah, 78 bros. Yep. It's I was a big time 78 fan, so ran it for 2 years in the peak series like that. So I guess given that we've got what are our ride height limits on this car? Are there any? Okay, yeah, so there are some. You can get down to 68. So we've actually got a ton of adjustment on that. Like from where we're at. So we'll definitely mess with some ride height stuff. I never like having negative rear toe. So I always like if I have a choice of between like if I can get a +0, I'll run that. But if it's a choice between -0 and +1, I'll always go for the +1. It just helps with stopping kind of wandering down the straights. We can add basically ½ degree of camber, so let's do that. We'll go 3/8 and yeah, okay. We'll try that because hey, why not? It's just one run. It'll give us an answer pretty quickly. And yeah, we're not like wearing tires at all here, so I'm pretty confident that this will be quicker. And did I change it? Yes, I did. Cool. I'd say if anyone's got any cues or anything, just ask. I'll try and answer them the best I can. It doesn't matter if it's not related to this car. Also, if anybody's interested in racing the Porsche 911 Cup, I've started basically doing one race of those weekly on a Wednesday night at about, I think it's 2:45 my time. I'll have to take a look at what that is, like American time and so on. But I'm sharing like all my setups for that, so if anybody wants to come and race it, it's a pretty fun car, and there will be a setup. I'm not necessarily promising it'll be a great setup, but you'll have the same thing that I'm gonna race. I had a pretty good race with that last night, actually. It was 19 people signed up, and it was really fun battle for the lead. Definitely could do with kind of shifting the balance a little bit in the high-speed corners. It's kind of too much understeer right now.
Minute 37.44.
feel like I might have actually lost a little bit of straightaway speed.
37.4.
And I feel like that's probably come from really rear camber. Because that adds... One thing I've noticed, and I noticed this actually on oval cars, is that the front camber is basically... it kind of seems to always work out as being max, especially on those cars. Because the gain you get from kind of having to turn the wheel less to basically turn the corner makes you faster. So, in a sort of a weirdy way, it's almost like more camber at the front actually takes drag away. It doesn't, because you'll still have drag on straightaways, but it seems like the gain, like the less scrub you have in the corners, basically offsets it. Not to mention the extra grip on tracks where you're grip limited. But driven tires seems to massively affect speed. Well, not speed, but drag. And then, by extension, speed. And speed down straightaways. Like, we don't run max rear camber at plate tricks. Because you lose straightaway speed. And I kind of feel like this car might actually be a little bit kind of in that realm. With basically how slow it is.
1 minute 37.64.
And that, like, any gains in mid-corner speed from rear camber is being offset by losses in straightaway speed. Not to mention that it kind of feels like it's sort of snugged the car up again. Now, I'm probably going to leave the front camber where it is, because I feel like that's definitely a gain. But I'm going to try dropping the rear camber maybe a degree and just see what happens. Like, normally I wouldn't use camber as kind of a balance tool. More just for raw speed, but I think in this case it might actually give me both.
Minute 37.5.
Pretty sure that was 4 timed. Yeah. Kind of always like to nail down this stuff first before I start messing with kind of the stuff where I feel like it's going to be a bit less clear. A bit like I really did with the late model, I guess. Okay, so it's still faster. Interesting. I mean, I knew the hot laps were fast, but I didn't know if, like, the lap 4 was going to be faster. In which case, I might leave it. I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to leave that for now, and then I can always come back to it. And this is one where I've not actually sorted the setup file. You can see the last time I raced this, though. That was way back in 16. I feel like brake bias is okay. Kind of curious that you can't change that from in the car. Or at least I don't think you can. Now, I know the front height, the heights are kind of quite high, so I'm going to try dropping the front down maybe about 5. Nah, I can go a lot, so. Let's go 10, which is a ton, really. And I'll drop the rear as well, a little bit. We'll go with like a 10mm split and then go from there. So I know that this thing does actually start hitting the track at some point. Can I change brake bias? Okay, I can change brake bias in car. But I can only go... Okay. Oh, you actually have a ton of adjustment. That's cool. A lot of cars seem to lock the brake bias to like about 3 to 5%, which is interesting. Like Cup is locked to 3%. Like either way. Now, usually I kind of go for as lower heights as I can, like as I can get to work, and that's mainly from just basically the closer you can get like a solid weight to the ground, the better it is for basically everything. You can obviously kind of do that with springs as well, but like on something like this where you can't change springs, normally what I'll do is kind of run the lowest front height I can get away with, and then use the rear height to set balance. There's a couple of exceptions to that rule. Say when you're trying to get certain things to work out with ride heights, like on oval cars and things, where you're trying to get certain behaviors to work out the way that you think they should. Usually that's kind of basically getting the travel you need to get the car to sit flat when it rolls over in the corner. It's a bit wild. But like for example, like if I want a bit more kind of rotation in the switchbacks, what I'm thinking I can do now is once I get the front heights where I want it, then I can maybe pull the rear up a little bit and I'll get some rotation that way.
Minute 37.19.
Yeah, really not an easy car to drive. Yeah, bias adjustments is in 0.5% increments.
One minute 37.18.
Yeah, it's 2 time lapse. The lower heights also helps a bit with the whole pendulum effect thing that you get with the rear end of this car. Like, I don't know if it's obvious on video, but for me it feels like the rear is now kind of doesn't want to slide as much. Like, I can get it to slide, but it feels a lot more controlled. And I think, I mean, it was dropped like about a 1/4 inch or more. Thanks for the follow, appreciate it.
1 minute
Wow, yeah, I'm pretty sure that was 4 times. I feel like we're almost at 140. Wow, we're at 144, so we're almost at 150 odd followers now, so that's cool. Yeah, I mean, tire wear is it just isn't a problem whatsoever. Also, I saw that someone joined the Discord. Yeah, if you want the 911 setups, the 911 setups are on the Discord, as is like a full archive of basically every week of this so far. So the video, the setup, the spreadsheet, and you can basically just chuck any questions you want at me in there if you want to do that, like in between streams and stuff. But that's really up to you. There's no like obligation to do that. I want to say that like we were down about 10 mil, so actually closer to a half inch rather than a quarter, but still. So again, kind of more gains. But we'll it's kind of showing a good gain, so we'll keep going at that, I think. Well, let's save it first. So the moment we got a 10 mil split, we'll keep that until we get the minimum, I think. Okay. So minimum is 70. Also, one interesting thing about this car is it doesn't actually have a crossweight indicator, so you just have to check that like your corner weights are actually lining up, that you've still got 50 cross and all that kind of deal. Definitely can't get low now. And actually, I'm just gonna add up how much the thing weighs just because I'm curious now. I feel like it's a lot though. Like relatively. Yeah, okay, so it's like it's 780 kilos, or like a 1,700 pound car, which I guess like relative to a road car is kind of light, but for how it looks, which is basically like it should weigh like half of that, it's kind of heavy. Can I get that to work? No. So I guess we're gonna go with 71 and 81. And interestingly, you gain a bunch of camber as well, so some of the speed is probably coming from that too. And I need to change my toes. I got 0 and 0 now, so I'm pretty happy with that. Let's try this. Hopefully we're not dragging the track now. I don't think we will be, but we might. So I'm thinking if this is faster again, then what the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the rear up alone like 3 to 5 mil and see if that gets a little bit more response out of the car and the high, well, not necessarily the high speed, but kind of the switchbacks. Sort of a bit like we did with the Porsche, where we kind of went all the way down and then we kind of found a bit of a window on rear heights to give us what we want. Thank you for the follow. I think it's 145 now. Slowly closing in on 200. Kind of massively overcooked the right-hander at the end of the straight there. Was really lucky actually not to end up off in the grass. And also you can occasionally hear the car just tap the ground, but it's definitely not bad enough for me to think I should go back up on heights.
Minute 36.88.
I mean, thinking about it, I think we're like down an inch on ride heights now, which is quite a significant amount, really. There's not really any aero on this car, so to speak. Like, I know it's kind of got like a prototype type body shell, but I don't believe that it produces any kind of aero, really. It's just all the gain comes from the extra camber and having the mass lower. Probably actually do a few races in this next week.
1 minute 36.
It's pretty fun.
92.
There's actually something I've been enjoying about this whole thing of doing like a different car every week, is that it's kind of actually got me back racing some more road cars again. Like with the 911 and I guess maybe now this too. Is there not, with it being kind of so much focus on oval stuff, there's not really that much driving of other stuff outside of these sessions. The other nice thing about these cars, where there's kind of only a couple of adjustments, is that hopefully these setups will be transferable to a lot of places. I know the Porsche one's been relatively transferable. I seem to just make rear end changes to that car, depending on the track.
1 minute 37.07.
And certainly the MX-5 and this car will be. Could probably be a bit better on my gear changes. Alright, so that's 4 again. I do feel like some of the gains are actually coming from me driving better. But also the car feels better to me. So that is part of it too. Is that especially once you kind of get past the things that's just raw speed, like camber, aero and that kind of thing, then it does come a bit down to speed and well, not speed, kind of the handling balance you want. And hey man, how's it going? And I just realized you can't see my screen. There you go. So yeah, pretty happy with that I'm kind of where I want to be on ride heights, at least at the front now. So been through front heights, front camber. I'm not going to change the caster because from other cars that, like, I personally feel like max is the way to go, unless there's a specific reason as to why it doesn't work, or like it just really doesn't work for your style. I have always found that with the current tire, whether it be oval or road, that maxing out the casters is the way to go. So I'm not going to touch that, and I'm just kind of going to go with it that that's where I want to be. So I feel like front end setup, we're basically set, except for we haven't touched the bar and we haven't changed anything on rebound. And we've not changed any air pressure stuff yet, actually. Although we will get to that. I'm gonna just try. Let me save this first. I'm gonna try pulling the rear heights up to 85. And let's just see how that goes. Just to kind of get a bit more rotation out of it. I still can't get 70 like I want on the front unless I have incorrect crossfire. So let's try that. And then we'll mess around with some air pressure,
User
I think.
joined your channel. Sound muted.
And that is why I should always close TeamSpeak before I start these streams. But never mind. So yeah, I just picked the rear up about 5 mil, and really that's just to try and give me a bit more like response in the switchbacks. It might also make me slower down the straights, but we'll see. I would definitely say for longer tracks, like I don't know if this car runs at places like Sebring or Monza. I mean Monza's just gonna be a draft war anyway, but for single lap, hot lap kind of stuff, you definitely want low rake setups for tracks with a ton of straights on them, just because you get less aero drag from it, even on something like this. They have not, but thank you. In an effort to kind of maintain consistency with what I'm like, with kind of how I've done all the other runs, so that the times and everything stay the same, I'm gonna not do that. But yeah, I will definitely put a note about that afterwards, or I might do like the last run doing that. I do remember that now. So I remember somebody had actually figured out all the shift points for this thing. Like if I'd remembered that from the start, then I would have done all the runs like that. But I don't want it to kind of impact on the effective changes and stuff at this point.
Minute 36.87.
can't even remember what engine's in this. And it's obviously some sort of Ford thing, but... See, what happened there is kind of what I was afraid about with pulling up rear heights. Is that if you get to the point where you're no longer kind of just turning the car, but actually the rear starts sliding, then it basically goes the opposite way and you start losing a ton of time.
1 minute 37.
Because you're then not getting like any drive out of the corner. But you can see how it's kind of worked through there. Single overhead cam 8 valve, really? That's tragic. Now, before anybody hates on me for saying what I just said about like single overhead cam stuff, keep in mind that this is an inline 4, and like it's not like inline 4s with dual overhead cams haven't been like ubiquitous for like 20-30 years now.
Minute 36.93.
Alright, I will add up again. Although, not really that keen on how that felt. Yeah, okay, I had one lap where it was really fast, but it wasn't that much faster to justify, I don't think. So we will try something else. Probably. It might end up saying it's slow, but just because that one lap where I made a mistake. Yeah. So really, that kind of, I guess, seems to be more of a handling thing. We're going to try the opposite kind of deal now. Still can't get that 70 mil height. So we'll try 71 and 76. And if I like how this feels, then what I'll probably then do afterwards is try a smaller front bar. Because I feel like I'm definitely going to lose rotation like this. Because ideally what I want is like the minimum amount of the pendulum effect with the rear end. And I feel like the lower I can sit the rear, the better that's gonna get. But I can't go so low so that I lose kind of like all the turn. And that's where maybe messing with the bars is gonna come into play. I mean, it feels solid on the outlap, but everything always does. I wonder what this engine, like, that's in this thing even comes out of these days. Okay. I was kind of going to move on to that after this, basically. That was going to be like my next thing to mess with. Because I haven't touched them all since base. I guess that was a good example of what happens when the car hits the track. Because that's what happened over that curve there.
Minute 36.9.
Might actually try it with the rear all the way down. Because this just generally feels better, to be honest.
Minute 36.72.
I do feel like this is perhaps a little easier to drive than it was in the past. Don't know if there's been any, like, significant updates. He says as the bat goes off. But I feel like I can lean on it a lot more than I used to be able to.
1 minute
Without it just killing me.
3.
It's a bit more like it used to be. That was just shitty driving by me, really. I completely forgot where the corner was there. Yeah, I haven't seen anything in, like, the list about updates or anything on it. It just feels easier. But the last time I drove it was 2 years back, so... Actually, yeah, I guess it was 3 years back now. That is extremely poor lap.
1 minute 37.45.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it's easier. Like, it's still hard. Like, it's definitely still difficult. But it does feel easier. You know, like, horrendous on lap times. But never mind. I think I was basically pushing too hard that last lap. Because, I mean, if I'd ran a 37.0, what would it have been? Yeah, okay. So I just screwed up, basically. Now can I get my extra? No. We'll just have to settle for 71 at 71. Alright, we'll try it. We'll try this, and then that'll be it for ride height stuff. And I'll move on to... I think I'll probably do one run with the front bar lower. And I've realised I've not got a screen share up. There we go. I'll do one run with the front bar lower, and then we'll do air pressure, I think. I remember doing a race in this thing at Spa where the downhill hairpin, like, literally half the field, I think, on the first lap spun out going into that corner. Oh, really? Okay. I'm thinking I could probably get, like, down to 70 and 70 with, when I change air pressures and stuff. Like, that corner there is difficult still, but I feel like it used to be, like, those style of corners would be way worse. Like, if you'd get them even slightly wrong, that would be like it. You'd be like, right, I'm off in the grass.
One minute 36.87.
Yeah, I definitely think this is the way to go, but I mean, I'm curious to see how it would work with the softer front bar, because I feel like I'm kind of having to lean on the fronts too much. But I feel like there's like more raw performance from having basically the car slammed to the ground.
1 minute 36.6.
Like, not a lot though. Like, we could kind of be in the realms of preference here. But the idea that as low as possible is fast kind of sits right with me in my head, so I'm probably gonna run like this, I think. But I am a big fan of basically, especially on aero cars, using rear heights to sort of tune balance. So that's kind of why I always sort of default to that. To sort of find the kind of point of rake that I'd like to be at.
1 minute 36.91.
That was interesting. I didn't expect to get like fired off the curb. I think this is lap 4. I hope it's lap 4.
Minute 36.75.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I'm definitely a fan of having the heights slammed. Although I have lost now some rotation, so definitely going to try going down at least one click on the front bar for the next run. But we'll add up laps first. Okay, so it's a good bit quicker actually. I feel like a lot of that came from just feeling like I could lean on the car more though. I'm not convinced it was that much faster. I'm not going to complain though. Speed gained is like speed gained, you know? So yeah, the next run I guess I'll drop bar down a medium in the front and hopefully that should get some rotation back. And then if I'm happy with that, then I'll just work on air pressure from that point. Resto, when you're saying between 120 and 130, I'm assuming you're meaning hot. Actually, no, that's probably kind of low. I guess they're cold numbers. And I've now alt-tabbed out for some reason. So I'll fix that. Yeah, cold. Ah, okay. Yeah, normally on stuff that I don't know, I'll go like up and down in 2-pound increments. And then sort of close in from there. It is a little difficult to do air pressure with like only basically 5 actual laps though. like I always say, I would always kind of do air pressure over. I mean, for something like this where it's, what is it, 15 lap race? I would definitely like be doing runs of say 7 or 8 laps, like usually half the race, to just get an idea of where you want to be. And that usually kind of what's fastest, like at that middle part of the race, is gonna be where you want to be. Now, there's a possibility that what I'm doing here with the smaller front bar might not work. And that comes from the... I've noticed that a lot of cars in iRacing really don't like any kind of roll. So even though you should kind of get more turn, it should be more pointy, it gets offset by... Well, what happens in a lot of cases is that when the car rolls, you start losing camber. And with how critical basically camber is on this game right now, it can get to the point where the extra roll actually offsets the handling balance gain. So a lot of cars, I'm kind of defaulting to pretty stiff front bars in them, because it kind of controls the platform better and sort of retains more camber. But I'm hoping on a car like this it shouldn't matter that much, and that it'll kind of go back the other way a bit. Not to mention that you also get the aero kind of playing an effect on the faster cars as well, which comes into sort of needing even better platform control just for that.
Minute 36.62.
Yeah, I was hoping that would be the case. I do prefer this medium bar actually, just in terms of feel. So what I'll probably do is I'll probably leave that in, and then if anybody wants to mess with it kind of in post, then they kind of have an option as to whether they want to go up and down on it. Like, I always kind of like leaving a little bit of adjustment and stuff, so that people can kind of have a play on their own, and with something like this, kind of get the balance that they want. I definitely don't think you'd want to stray from running a stiff rear bar, though. Like, nothing really suggests to me that you'd want to do that. That corner's gonna claim so many people race week for this. I can just tell. It's like absolutely deadly. It felt better, but was it faster? Answer looks like it's marginally. I'm gonna keep it in there because it lets there be kind of some adjustment to it. But that I would say was more of a balance thing than a raw speed thing, I think. Right, so what we got for so we're at 22.5, 155. So we're gonna go down to 21.5 in the front and 20.5 in the rear. At least we can now have the heights we want with 70 and 70 finally. Although it always bugs me to have the front higher, even if it's only like marginally. But we'll leave it because it was, I think, just one click. So I'm just gonna call. Well, I'll type out the name for this afterwards, but I'm gonna call it like tire pressure down 2 pounds or something in the sheet. Does the spec? Well. I was gonna say, does the Spec Racer Ford have individual setups per track? And I feel like it doesn't. I'm pretty sure when I looked in the garage screen, I only had the one option of the baseline. 'Cause it has kind of sort of occurred to me that perhaps on stuff like this I should maybe actually email the setups in and submit them as baselines. It really is. It'll certainly teach you a lot about, like, throttle control, if nothing else. Oh, I haven't messed with any shock stuff. And hey, how goes it?
One minute 36.69.
Feel like I was lucky that that third gear shift actually went in there. Kind of curious as to why the Delta bars just decided to leave us.
1 minute 36.64.
I'm assuming you guys are running the lower air pressures for better longer on pace. Because like the outlap felt like I was basically under pressured really. But now it's kind of starting to come good.
Minute 36.56.
That yellow curve, I would really use that in a lot of other cars, but in this it feels like it's just going to fire me off and out of space. You do 3-minute outlaps? Oh, okay. You do the crawl or the creep as it's called on oval.
Minute 36.68.
Alright. I do appreciate though that guys who already run the car and basically know what to do with it are actually watching these and kind of commenting on that. It's always handy to both kind of have that experience, and it's cool that you guys are interested to see it. The 21.5 and 20.5, okay. I really should put a hotkey so I could swap that quicker. It's just when I've hotkeyed like the scene switcher in the past, it's ended up like crossing over with keybinds that I've got for other stuff. So I'm kind of wary of it now. But yeah, okay. So that was quicker. So I'll go down another £2, I guess. So we'll go down to 19.5 and 18.5 on the next run. Oh, my hotkey actually still does work. It's just I forget what it is. I guess I have to do 70 and 71. I think I'm sort of now moving into your window that you were saying about 120 to 130. So let me check toe. Yep, it's all the same. Something that you might be interested to know, by the way, on your 3-minute outlaps. Are you aware that, in qualifying, that if you drop under 30 miles an hour, your tires reset? And by reset, I mean they go back to... Hello. They go back to what your garage, like, settings are. So, like, literally brand new, like, cold with the, like, their garage air pressures and everything. So, yeah. You don't necessarily need to do your 3-minute outlap. It was a thing that was put in to combat people doing burnouts in pit road at plate tracks. Because what people were doing was they were basically doing a burnout, and for whatever weird reason on plate tracks, when your tires are hot, you go faster. So it was to combat that. But I believe it applies to all qualifying sessions, where if you drop under 30 miles an hour, all your tires get reset. Try it. Do a hosted session, log telemetry from it, and do like either a lone qualifier or an open qualifier. Drop under 30 miles an hour, and you'll see it. It's not a bug or anything, it's literally it's there to combat one thing, but it creeps over into other stuff.
Minute 36.44.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, you look at it and you're like, wow, that's awesome. Yeah, I can have like super fast laps, because I'll have brand new tires and everything. But it doesn't actually work quite as great as it sounds, because like you say, you lose the straight line speed, which is actually exactly what it's there to do, basically. It was put in to combat people doing burnouts in pit road on super speedway tracks. I really tanked that lap right there. I was going really quick to begin with, and then I just screwed up near the end. But it's an interesting thing to play with. like just to kind of see.
One minute 36.62.
Just staying hydrated. It's a good point actually. I do have a cup of tea next to me, although that will have long since gone cold since I started this.
One minute 36.5.
I feel like I have force feedback slightly too high as well. Well, it's definitely quicker. I didn't actually expect the first lap to be faster like that, to be honest. I will save that. And I'm also going to try and... Well... See, I never like having my rear tyres with more air in them than my fronts. And given that there seems to be more rear build anyway, I was gonna add a half pound to the rears to try and get them equal out, but I feel like actually having a 1 pound split is gonna equal out over a couple more laps anyway, so I will probably not touch that. I'm gonna go down another pound. And I'm mainly doing that extra pound just because it puts me right in the window suggested by Resto, so or at least close to it. I mean, how low can you actually go on this thing? Oh, you can go down to 16s. I mean, we could go down to 6. Yeah, okay, let's try this. We're gonna go down to 17. We're gonna do 17.5 in the front and 16.5 in the rear. Actually, no, we're not. We're not. We're gonna do 18 in the front and 17 in the rear, because then that gives people a pound to play with. So I might be slightly under here, but we'll see. This is probably going to be the last one I do, by the way, just because I want to eat, and basically I've been doing it for 2 hours, and I kind of feel like we're very close to where you want to be anyway. But I am also going to kind of look into who I need to talk to about submitting these as baselines, because I definitely feel like this baseline and the MX5 baseline that I did are better than the iRacing ones. Plus, it'd be kind of cool to have something that I did actually, like, kind of go out to everybody and help out. Also, Jason, remind me to message you about something. So I just had an idea about something that you'd probably be interested in. Funny guy. I was meaning on Facebook, but okay. Yeah, well maybe what I could do is I could, like, submit a baseline that had the earlier air pressures that we had, like maybe actually just leave what was in there. Although I don't know. I don't like really doing that because obviously, like, we found a ton of speed by changing them, you know? And I don't want people to feel like I've, like, intentionally shortchanged them by submitting a baseline that didn't have what I thought was best in it, you know? Perhaps what we had last run would be okay.
Minute 36.27.
Holy crap, that was kind of fast. Oh, ride heights. Oh, okay. I could put him at 75. I feel like there was no dragging happening at 75. The need for speed. Hey, I'm definitely not one to criticize slow cars. My Miata is definitely the funnest thing that I've driven, really. And that thing's slow as hell, so... This is a pretty poor lap, mainly because that big slide I had.
1 minute 36.8.
$90 for Nordschleife? I mean, that's Nordschleife, though. You know? Maybe I should put him at 80 then. That seems like a fair compromise. I feel like Nordschleife is like too extreme, you know? I would definitely question the well, the sanity of a person who was new to this car suddenly deciding that they wanted to race it on Nordschleife. This actually feels like too low air pressures. I feel like I'm like skating everywhere. But I mean, it's hard to argue though when it still goes fast, you know?
1 minute 36.58.
It just requires a bit more finesse. Really? Yeah, crazy people deciding they want to race Spec Racer at Nordschleife. I suppose it's one of those tracks though, isn't it, really, where it's like, you get... I know back when I used to play Forza 2 a lot, we would literally run Nordschleife only rooms, which was great. Because you just got like a core group of guys who always just wanted to race that. That was probably more representative. Well, okay. To some people, it is the best track ever. I'm not gonna say it categorically is. I like it. I think it's fun. I also get the feeling that in this car, you want to aim for around about 20 pounds heart pressures. It just feels that way to me. PSI 8. I think that was 18 front. And 19 front, 18 rear. And I know the lap times are going to take, like, I know when this sums up, it's probably going to be slower, which is going to be really frustrating because it definitely was faster. I just kind of sucked. Oh, okay. Luckily it worked out as being very marginally quicker. So I'll take it. And honestly, I kind of feel like that's at the point where now I would say that's pretty good. There's probably maybe half a second more to be found, I think. Also, I would definitely take the baseline differences with a bit of how'd you say it? It's the baseline is not that much slower. I got better as we were driving it then. Don't get me wrong, I feel like probably when we got to column F, so like when we dropped the heights, I feel like from that point onwards, we were making some gains. But the baseline isn't that slow. That was me being slow. Like it's not. There's no way because like it's only a little bit down on cam, but it's a lot down on ride heights in fairness because it's jacked way up. But it's yeah. But the baseline is pretty decent. What we've got there is better definitely, but I don't think it's. I mean what? I don't think it's 1.5 seconds a lap faster. I would say it's probably maybe. I know depending on if I was to run the baseline again to see what it was, I'd say it's probably we're at least half a second to a second faster, which is good. But it's the baseline isn't 1.5 seconds off. But we've been going for about 2 hours now, so I think I'm gonna call it at that. I'm pretty happy with where we ended up at. Any chance you'll join us for an official race next week? Yes, I will. Definitely. What time slot do you guys normally race? And like what days? There's a couple of days where I've got other stuff like I mean Wednesday I'm always gonna run my Porsche stuff from now on. Again, if anybody's in here now who wasn't in here earlier, if you join the Discord, there's gonna be Porsche setups for every week going forwards from now, and you can come and race with me on a Wednesday night at. Let me just put it. I'll put the splash screen up so you can see it. At that time, so 9:30 Eastern. The race is actually at 9:45 Eastern, but I've decided I'll start streaming about 15 minutes earlier. So yeah, if you want to race a 911 Cup with me, then that's the time slot I'll be running from this point forwards. You'll have setups. I'm not saying they'll be the greatest setups, but you'll have the exact same setup that I'm having. So if you want to come run with me, it's a really fun car. We had I think 19 people yesterday, and we had a really good battle for the lead actually. So that was a ton of fun. So if you want to come and race that, there will be a setup. It's in the Discord. You're welcome to grab it. The first race of the week has a decent turnout. I feel like that's gonna be Monday night though, and I'm gonna run A Open because I realized that I'm actually leading A Open, or I'm like second or something, and I've got still. I think I've only got like 5 out of 8 weeks counted, so I'm actually gonna try and win A Open. So I probably won't be able to make that. I won't be able to make a Tuesday race. I could do like any day, basically Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I'm so really that's kind of like what around about 7 Eastern or something. I'll try and figure a day, and I'll maybe make a post about it or something. But I will definitely come and race this because this is a fun car, and obviously there's a setup for it, so I'm down to come and run. And I've ran it before, and I've had a lot of fun with it, so I'm certainly not opposed to running it. I'm looking to see if there's any other interesting iRacing stuff going on right now on Twitch, but I don't see anything. And I don't see any of my friends streaming things, so might just leave it that. But yeah, if anybody from Spec Racer wants to, I don't know, shoot me a PM on the forum or something about a time slot, then I'll if I can run it, I will definitely come and race it with you. But thank you for joining me for that. That was a lot of fun. That was actually a lot more fun than I was expecting. I kind of figured I'd be grappling with a car that would be awful to drive for like about an hour before I got anywhere, but I really didn't. So thank you for the follow, by the way. Yeah, it's 146 now, so we're getting closer to our 200 goal. For anybody who missed anything near the beginning, I will put the video up on YouTube as well, and on the thread there'll be a link to that. So and you can grab everything there. You can grab the setup, the timesheet, and the video. So if you just kind of want to scan through and look at stuff, that's more than fine, and that's what that's there for you to do. But thank you for joining me. These are a lot of fun. I've been enjoying this a lot. It's actually probably the thing I have the most fun with like all week. So I appreciate people joining me for it, and I hope it's helping. I've had a couple of people message me and say that they've either found things or they've got better from watching these. So it definitely seems like it's a worthwhile thing to do, and I'll keep doing it. The plan is really to eventually work through literally every car, and that's going to be really difficult for some of the dirt stuff and for some of the more crazy stuff that I don't race like at all. But it should be fun, and it's a fun project, and I'm having a good time doing it. So I appreciate you all hanging out and watching, and I hope it's helping. And I'll try and get the thread up earlier, probably Sunday or something. So I'll catch you all next week. And to the guys who do come and race either Spec Racer or Porsche, I'll see you there.